I bet you think you're looking at a famous rock star. Well, sadly, you're not. It's just me. And today, we're going to have a little chat about the dollar watch. But let me put my sunglasses back on. It's very bright in here. So, the dollar watch. Why'd they call it the dollar watch? Well, you guessed right. It cost $1. $1 US. So this is a watch that was made for $1 US, and that dollar price point was reached in 1896 when Ingersoll introduced a watch called the Yankee. It set the price at $1. It made it the cheapest watch available at the time, and the first watch to be priced at exactly $1. It was pretty much made for the common man, the working man, the farmer. You could find this dollar watch under a whole heap of manure if you looked hard enough. In fact, the first watch I worked on, the pocket watch I worked on, was a dollar watch, and someone did find it in a barn and said, "Hey, how's about looking at this watch to see if you can get it going again?" And I looked at it and I thought, this is a pretty cool little watch. But I figured it wasn't worth a whole lot, but it was interesting. So the Western Clock Company, which was West Clock, go figure, in 1899, and the E. Ingram Company began manufacturing these dollar watches. So these dollar watches were very practical. They were mass-produced timepieces. They were intended to be inexpensive, and the dollar watches were simple. They were rugged design. The movement, really a pin palette escapement, no jewels, maybe 1 jewel, maybe no jewels, maybe 1 jewel. I'm stuck in a loop. Anyway, they were around 2 inches wide, and you know when they measure a watch in inches, they can't cost a lot. The sale price of a buck went from about 1890, like the 1892, until kind of the mid-1950s. Of course, the quartz watches and all that took over at that point in time, and the market kind of died. They also tried to make these, or did make these in the UK, and they called them crown watches. So they started this watch company later on in the UK. They kept the watches, they were mass-produced, so they kept the costs down. They basically punched out the plates, and we're going to have a look at one of these dollar watches now and kind of appreciate the technology, the simplicity of it. The mechanics are so simple, it just can't break. There's nothing to go wrong, but they're not the kind of watch you want to show your friends. Hey, look what I just bought. It cost me $1. Oh yeah, I'm going to buy one too. I don't think so. So this is your typical dollar watch. Wait, this is your typical a whole lot of dollars watch. So this is a dollar watch sold for $1 US, and it's the Ingersoll Maple Leaf dollar watch. So let's talk about dollar watches, and let's talk about dollar watches in Canada. So the very popular West Clock Pocket Ben dollar watch. It all started with the Western Clock Company in LaSalle, Illinois. And in around 1920, they opened a factory in Peterborough, Ontario, and built watches there for many, many years, up until the 1950s. So this is one of the pocket watches that they built back then, and it's the Pocket Ben. They also built the Big Ben, and they only built that till 1908, and then the Baby Ben alarm clocks. I don't have any of those, but this was the Pocket Ben by West Clock. So Peterborough's got some history in watchmaking. So this is the West Clock Pocket Ben. Very simple watch. You wound it from the crown up here, and it has a small bail, kind of decorated bail. I guess not that well decorated, but a simple bail, simple hands, and some of these watches you set the time by pulling in on it, and some of them you pull out on it. This is really old. I don't know if that'll work. Yeah, so you can set the time on this watch. And it had a second hand in the base, which was obviously needed, and I've already loosened the back up. These backs you pop off. You just use a back removing tool here, and you just snap it off. So they weren't screw down backs. And actually the face you didn't screw down as well. So there's the movement, if we can call that a movement. As you can see, there's probably 0 joules in this particular watch. I didn't read to see if there was any joules, but looks like there's 0 joules. You'd regulate the watch by just pushing this arm back and forth, and the escapement, this pin escapement, was very simple on this watch, so nothing much could go wrong with this thing. As you can also see, there is no screws on the balance for you to adjust the balance at all for timing or temperature or any of those things that you'd find in a higher end pocket watch. The mainspring barrel is under here, and again you've got a hole punched out to capture the pivot of the mainspring arbor coming through here. Disassembly, you could disassemble this watch. There's some screws, I believe, that could be used to disassemble the main plate here, but today we're going to do something completely different. So I also assume that cleaning this watch really wasn't worthwhile, because it was worth $1. So this watch might run for 5 years pretty well for $1. You don't want to spend any more than $1 cleaning it, so you don't want to double your cost by actually going to the watchmaker to clean, because a watchmaker might charge you back then $3 to clean this watch, right? So not worth the money. So very simple watches. Again, they were owned by your average layperson or farmers, and again, like I said earlier, the first watch I ever received was from a chap at work who found this old pocket watch in a barn, probably under a heap of dung. Gave it to me. It was in pretty bad condition, and I just cleaned it up and got it running again, but I did not take it apart. So today we're going to see if we can do a little experiment on pocket watches, and we're going to see if we can clean these in one shot. So the rumor is that you can take one of these pocket watches and you can dip it in lighter fluid, or you can dip it in naphtha, and you can just let it dry, and all of a sudden it works again. So let me see if I can find a working model of one of these pocket watches. So this pocket watch here, I don't know if I've taken the back off of this one, so is that wound up? This pocket watch, the Ingersoll pocket watch, you would push the crown in to set the time, which is kind of weird, but that's how they did it. So you keep the crown pushed in to set the time, and then you just wind it like this, and away it goes. So here we have almost 100-year-old pocket watch that is running. There you go. It's a running pocket watch. So let me have a look inside. If I can snap the back off of this, we can have a look inside. So let me just, there we go. This is the Bergeron back snapping device. This is a very, very high-end back snapper. So, and again, I got to work my way around here because it doesn't seem to want to come up. There we go. So there it is. So the pocket watch here is actually running. There it goes. So it's ticking fairly well, and as you can see, there's a little window here, and you can see the escapement going around, and there's a pinwheel thing happening there, and this thing is pretty cheap. So this is the one of the original Ingersoll pocket watches. Again, I don't believe these were meant to clean in your standard manner, like take apart and clean all the wheels and do all that stuff. So they have no jewels in them, or 1 jewel. I think this is probably a no jewel. If they have any jewel in them at all, it would be on top of the balance staff here, or the balance wheel and the balance staff pivot. So that's where they would have a jewel here. So very simple watch, but listen to that sucker go. Listen to him go. Man, that sounds good. That's a very satisfying sound. So today what I'm going to do as a bit of an experiment is take one of these watches. I probably will use one that I'm not too concerned with. This is a no-name brand dollar watch. I don't even know who made this, and the face is a bit marred, right? So there's a little bit of inconsistency in the face here already. Probably already cleaned by shoving it in a vat of lighter fluid. But the escapement does move a bit. So there we go. The balance does tick away. It's kind of slowing down right now. So the question is, can I get this thing running really well by throwing it in? So I'm going to wind this up a little and see if I can give the balance a little bit of power and see how well it moves. So it's just ticking away here. I'd like to find one that moved a little worse, right? Because this one here is actually running quite well. So I need to find a pocket watch, a dollar pocket watch in my mess of watches that is having a hard time running, and then we'll clean that. So this watch is the winner. So it's only got one hand. There is a second hand ticking away, which is good, so it indicates that this thing will actually work. This is also an Ingersoll, I believe, pocket watch. And if I look at the back, it doesn't have much of a tick on the darn thing, right? So we'll see if we can, and I wound this up a bit, and let's see if we can get this one working a bit better by just submersing it in a vat of lighter fluid, and or let's see if I can find some naphtha in the garage. So I'm going to go outside now and try that out. Alright, we're going to go outside now and take this night watch, it was called, the Leonard night watch. I think it's because it had a little bit of loom, actual loom around that, so it's probably really radioactive loom if it was in the 30s, so I don't want to be biting off that and dealing with the 1 million year half-life, because that could make me sick, couldn't it? So I'm going to take this watch here, I'm going to snap the front off of it, so I want to take the crystal off, and I'm going to snap the back off of it, and I'm going to submerge this thing in lighter fluid. Actually, I've got naphtha, and I'm going to let it sit there for a little while, swish it around, and I'm going to take it out and let it dry, and then I'm going to see if it's working well, fixed it, did a good job. This is what I've heard that they did back in the day. The farmer would take some gasoline and just take his pocket watch and throw it in the gasoline, let it swish around there for a while, and then pull it out, and guess what? His pocket watch is clean and working again. So that was the way they did it back then. So it's not a Mythbusters, but I'm going to see if I can do that with this pocket watch and see if it actually cleans it. So there you go. Here is the basic setup for the experiment. I have a fuel container full of naphtha. I've got a glass container or cup. It's got measurements on the side, that doesn't matter. I've got the victim, the pocket watch in question. I've taken the back off, I've loosened the front on this, put a chain on it to dip it. I use that. I've got a table here, and now I'm going to get this thing filmed properly. I'm also using proper protective equipment, and I'll show you that in a second. All right, this is the pocket watch cleaning experiment. As you can see, I've got safety glasses because I'm using naphtha here. I'm wearing a mask so I don't breathe the naphtha in because it could be dangerous to your lungs. And I'm also wearing gloves, protective gloves, in case the naphtha hits my hands. So, and this is, please do not do this, try this at home. It could be dangerous. Naphtha is very flammable, so you got to watch that. Now if you look very closely, you'll see that the pocket watch is running, but it's running very poorly, like slowly. And we're going to dip this in the naphtha, clean it up, and we'll see, let it dry, and then we'll see if this improves the performance of the pocket watch. So let me put the naphtha in here. And it's cold out here. It's cold naphtha. It's a lot of naphtha.
Baby, it's cold outside.
Baby, it's cold outside. I'm dunking a watch. Baby, it's cold outside. I'm dunking a watch. So you got to, I'm not sure what this will do to the actual face of the watch and whether it'll cause an issue, but let's just dunk it in and see what happens and swish it around. So there it's in the naphtha, and I'm doing the swishing
I want to see the face
of the pocket watch. I'm seeing whether this thing will actually clean it. Not sure. I'm not using any brushes or anything. I'm just going to swish it around like the old farmers used to do. And then I'm going to pull it out and let it dry. So turn this around and see if it's still ticking. Don't know. Probably not ticking underwater. Maybe it does. Is that thing ticking underwater? So let it sit here.
yeah, I see
It works takes a licking and keeps on ticking. So this is a official 200-meter underwater pocket watch. If it's ticking underwater, then that's an add-on. So if you're a farmer with a dollar watch and you fall into the pond, you'll still be able to keep time. It's amazing. So let me just switch this around some more, and then we'll come back in a few seconds after the watch is dried off. And again, the face looks like it's still there, so that's good. And I'll just switch this around, and we'll go from there. Okay, now that we've cleaned the watch in Naphtha, we've left it for around 5 minutes maybe. I'm not sure whether leaving it longer makes a difference, but let's take it out and let's put it on a plate and let it dry. That's the next stage. So let's take that out here and just lay that down like this and let it dry. And as you can see, it's still ticking. Alright, the watch is still drying here, but it's ticking, which is pretty amazing. Not sure whether that amplitude is pretty good yet, but we're going to let it dry for around half an hour, and then we'll test it later. Alright, we need to hair dry this watch because it looks like there's a naphtha being absorbed into the face. Try not to talk while I'm hair drying, blowing, whatever. So this might imply that the face is made of cardboard, which may require the removal of the face before you do crazy stuff like this. So I'm just blowing this. Let's put it on high. Yeah, I can see it drying it off a bit, so we'll just dry it out a bit. And then we'll turn this around for a second. And I'm going to dry the movement too. Pretty hot. Now let's dry this little watch off a bit and have a look at it. There's still liquid on the face here, so I'm not sure whether that will mar the watch or remove the numbers from the face or what will happen. If I just dry this off a bit, I can see whether it has a major impact to the face, and maybe there's a way of removing the face and then dunking the pocket watch after you remove the face. So far it's looking fine. The numbers are still there, which is nice. That was a big one. See whether the numbers would remain. I think this face may be cardboard as opposed to porcelain, because these were pretty cheap watches, so I may need to let this dry for a lot longer than I thought. So we'll just do that, and we'll dry the watch off as much as we can, and I'm sure that the naphtha will evaporate pretty quickly. And you can tell that when it's gone because you actually can't smell it anymore. It's just gone. So when I had a sniff of the face here, it still smelled a little bit like naphtha, even though I shouldn't be sniffing naphtha. So let's look at it again in a little while. So it looks like the naphtha cleaned up the dial a bit actually, and it didn't remove any of the numbers or marks. So anywhere on the dial, or the second hand is still moving around here. Have to look at the original photo here of this dial to see if there's a big difference. And again, this dial had some lume on it and didn't seem to remove the lume from the dial, so that's all positive. Pretty sure the naphtha's all gone now. This dial feels like it's a plastic dial, and not, yeah, it looks like it's a plastic dial. And the watch is still ticking away. So what I'm going to do, now that it's been kind of sort of cleaned, I'm going to put the crystal on the top here, and then let's put a little oil on it and see if it runs any better. Now the interesting part of this whole experiment is that the watch kept ticking while it was under the naphtha, it's not underwater obviously, but it's under naphtha. So while it was submerged in naphtha, the things kept ticking, which I think is pretty phenomenal. So I'll put a little bit of oil on the pivots here and see if that improves the amplitude of this watch. So just oil it just a bit, and I'm not sure whether that'll get it going anymore. I think it is going a little bit better than it was. Maybe the experiment should have been throwing it into manure and then cleaning it. So it did prove that the naphtha really doesn't do any harm to it, because it's still working. So all good there. And if I were able to get at that escapement, I'd probably put some oil on the escapement too. So there we go. I think even the pallet fork, the pallet fork doesn't have any jewels either. This is a pallet fork pivot sticking up, so it's all basically all mechanical. Looks as though you can take this off here. So unscrew this and have a look at the internals of this watch. But that's not what this experiment was about. This experiment was about submerging it in naphtha and seeing whether I still had a watch working. So, and was it going to be any better than before? Actually, I do think its amplitude has increased. I'll have to compare the before and after on the amplitude, and it's got a bit more in there. Imagine that this mainspring on this thing is 100 years old, and I don't imagine they put a very strong mainspring on these watches. The other thing is, I don't even know how you'd get this out of the case. Like, there's no screws to take the case apart. So again, I think that you probably just unscrew these and then unscrew this, and somehow the thing comes apart. I'll have to take one of these apart, but the hairspring looks perfect. So it was cleaned well with a hairspring, so the hairspring looks perfect, and so there's no issue there. So that's pretty good. And again, I'll just measure the amplitude, but it looks like it's ticking away fairly good right now. So that was an interesting experiment. It may be a mythbuster, positive myth, or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to ruin any copyright stuff here, but I think that the stories of the farmers dunking their pocket watches in gasoline and then shaking them off and continue to work, I think are true, because this thing is still working, and it's ticking away, and I think that we have a success here. So there you go. Look at that thing go, man. Look at that thing go. It's actually moved it just a bit, and it's moving really well now. So there we go. That's the experiment. Stand by. So that was a heck of a lot of fun. Got the naphtha out, dunked the pocket watch in the naphtha. The amazing part of the whole experiment was the pocket watch just kept on ticking. It's still ticking right now. I give it a little bit of oil and it'll work itself in, and it looks like the amplitude has improved a bit on this pocket watch. I'm sure you can now just dunk a watch into a naphtha or lighter fluid completely, and if it's got, even with jewels, because it won't affect the jewels, you may be able to clean a pocket watch that way in 5 minutes instead of 5 hours. So I don't recommend it for higher end watches worth more than $1. So, but this sort of proves that farmers might have done this in the past and just taken their dollar watch and dunked it and got it going again. So pretty cool. It would degrease it for sure if there's a lot of grease in here. This one wasn't that dirty, but it looks like it's improved the amplitude of the watch. Plus, the most amazing part of the whole video is the darn thing was working when it was submerged in naphtha, which proves that you can lose the back off your watch, no seal or anything. Go for a swim with this pocket watch, come out of the water, and the thing will still be working. So you can use this while you're scuba diving, probably. Don't recommend it, but what the heck, right? So thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it very interesting. So I think that in conclusion, it worked. It actually worked.